Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about Stonehenge. However, this is not an episode about Stonehenge itself. This is an episode about what might lie beneath it. If you think you know all there is to know about Stonehenge, maybe start brushing up on your folklore because what's buried at Stonehenge is not for the living to see. We all know Stonehenge is a collection of standing stones in England. For centuries, we've wondered why they were erected there and what they were used for. Some scholars believe it was a temple of some sort. Others believe it was some kind of calendar. Still others believe it may have been used for dark rituals. What if the answer was none of the above? What if there is something buried underneath those stones that they were put there to keep contained? Let's find out. This is Stonehenge. It rises from the earth on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. It is one of the most famous archaeological sites in the world. But how old is it exactly? The oldest parts of the monument are thought to be around 3,000 years old, with the youngest section still a massive 4,000 years old. That makes it older than the Egyptian pyramids and older than almost anything else in Great Britain. And yet, we don't know much about it at all. For hundreds of years, the general belief was that Stonehenge was some kind of burial ground. In the late 19th century, archaeologist William Hawley speculated that the Aubrey holes, which are circular ditches surrounding Stonehenge, were used for inhumation. He believed the Stonehenge monument itself was made up of two halves, one circular and one D-shaped. This D-shaped section was said to contain the burials, while the circular half contained cremations. This theory was supported by the discovery of human remains within the monument, as well as animal bones. William's ideas were generally accepted until the early 1950s. Then Richard Atkinson came along and proposed a different theory. Richard argued that Stonehenge wasn't a burial ground at all. Instead, he theorized, it was a place of healing, where Druids would treat the sick and injured. His theory was based on his own research, as well as the fact that Neolithic man had already inhabited the area before it was a monument. Richard argued that since Neolithic man lived in relative harmony with nature, it's likely that they would have used the land for medicinal purposes. Unfortunately, Richard passed away in 1960, so he never got to see his theory disproven. In 1965, excavations revealed that the so-called Aubrey holes weren't holes at all. They were pits dug for burials. Cremations, whole skeletons, and even infants were found within them. So whoever built Stonehenge clearly saw it as a place of death rather than life. But that doesn't mean they saw it as a place of evil. Fast forward a few years to 2008, and archaeologists working on the Stonehenge Riverside project discovered something incredible. Beneath the monument itself, they uncovered the remains of a wooden structure from around 3000 BCE. Archaeologist Vince Gaffney said, "It is extraordinary to discover such a substantial building preserved beneath the most famous prehistoric monument in Britain." This discovery suggested that the builders of Stonehenge may have had more sophisticated architectural skills than previously thought. It also suggested that Stonehenge was probably a sacred site first and foremost, rather than a calendar or an astronomical clock, as many had speculated. So why did the builders of Stonehenge choose this particular location for their amazing monument? To answer that question, we need to take a look at the legends. According to legend, Stonehenge didn't always just rise from the earth. Once, it walked the earth. It moved across the country from Ireland. No, seriously. There are legends that tell of a time when the stones left the island of Ireland and arrived in England. Then they walked across the countryside to where they remain today. This tale comes to us from Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote it down in his book, The History of the Kings of Britain. But he definitely didn't make it up. The Irish had been telling stories of Stonehenge for centuries before Geoffrey ever wrote them down. One story tells of a giant named Cole, who lived near Stonehenge in a place called Caer Stonehenge. The problem was that Cole wasn't exactly happy with the locals, and he decided to kill every single person in the city except for one young woman. He chained her to a rock monolith which she escaped by turning into a bird. When Cole realized what had happened, He picked up the rock monoliths and threw them at the bird, but they missed. They landed in a row, forming the very first Stonehenge. Another legend says that Merlin built Stonehenge with the help of giants. Merlin ordered the giants to roll the stones from Ireland to England. However, they grew tired of carrying the stones and dropped them where they stood. Yet another legend says that Stonehenge was brought to Britain by magic. Magic, as in the power of the old gods. It was brought here to be a prison. According to some legends, the builders of Stonehenge knew that they were creating more than just a monument. They were creating a prison for the old gods. These gods were old, primordial beings whose worship had died out thousands of years ago. However, these gods didn't want to leave this world behind. They clung to the mortal plane and refused to go to the afterlife. It's possible that these gods were seen as dangerous. After all, they were gods who refused to follow the natural order of things. Perhaps that's why the builders of Stonehenge needed to keep them contained. But if that's true, why does Stonehenge have the power to hold back these gods in the first place? Maybe it's because of the ley lines. Ley lines are natural energy points that are said to crisscross the globe. It's believed that Stonehenge is located at the center of several major ley lines, which gives it its power. But this isn't the only reason that people were drawn to the site. There was also the matter of the fairies. Fairies were said to inhabit the standing stones. And if you didn't believe me, you can ask Thomas Pennant. Back in 1796, Thomas Pennant published a book called A Tour Through Wales. In it, he wrote about an encounter with a fairy that took place at Stonehenge. According to Thomas, he met a group of fairies at the entrance to Stonehenge. They asked him to join them inside the monument, but he refused. When he went to leave, they blocked his path. He wrote that the fairies seemed annoyed and said, "What is that man doing here?" Then one bold fairy stepped forward and said, "He refuses to come in when desired." Upon hearing this, the other fairies began beating their wings. Thomas wrote that it sounded like a drum being beaten with a hammer, and then they vanished into the stones. But it's not just fairies that are drawn to Stonehenge. Legends say that witches gather there during the summer solstice to perform dark rituals. As recently as the 1970s, people reported seeing nude witches dancing around the monument. Although no one has ever been able to prove that witches are really gathering at Stonehenge, the rumors persist. As for what these witches are doing there, well, that's anyone's guess. But let's hope it's nothing too evil. Otherwise, we may be opening ourselves up to some forces best left in the past. Now, let's take a look at some of the weirdest things that have actually been found at Stonehenge. First up, there's the Durrington Walls. The Durrington Walls are located about a mile away from Stonehenge. They consist of a large circular ditch and a massive bank. It's believed that the Durrington Walls may have served as a ceremonial enclosure, but we don't know for sure. Archaeologists did find evidence that the Durrington Walls was occupied during the construction of Stonehenge. It may have been used as a settlement for the workers who built Stonehenge, or it may have been used for ceremonies related to the construction. Then there's the Heel Stone. The Heel Stone is located about 200 feet away from Stonehenge. It's a single stone monolith that stands about 4 feet tall. It's believed that the Heel Stone may have been used as an entrance to Stonehenge, or it may have been used as part of a ceremony. Some believe the Heel Stone was originally part of Stonehenge, but it broke off and fell. Either way, it's definitely one of the most interesting features of the monument. And finally, there's the Altar Stone. The Altar Stone is a large block of wood that was found near Stonehenge in 1913. It's believed that the Altar Stone may have been used as an altar for animal sacrifices. However, there's no solid evidence to support this theory. Now, what do you think lies beneath Stonehenge? Is there a dark secret hidden beneath the stones? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to stay tuned for more. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!